Trinidad and Tobago. We were not perfect, but that is what you all vote us out for? Yes. That? Yes. Mr. Speaker, we are in the middle of a mid-year budget review. And for 45 minutes, all I have heard from the Honourable Member for Couva South is Melissa Pierre, this one here. What does that have to do, Mr. Speaker, with the mid-year budget review? I know he would leave, because he will never be man enough to confront me. He must send a woman to do his job, because that is exactly what he is, Mr. Speaker. A coward. A coward, Mr. Speaker. But I repeat what I say to you now tonight. He can speak loudly. He can have all the vitriol that he wants. But nothing that was just said here, Mr. Speaker, improves the lives of the persons in Port of Spain South for this country. He talking about the poor man. What about the poor member of parliament who he went and intimidated on Friday? Huh?
Mr. Speaker, 48-4 and 48-6.
That part is irrelevant.
What about the poor persons who cannot come to work in this parliament and be safe? Whilst acting within the course of their employment. How they made a big hullabaloo and calling people sister and stuff. Mr. Speaker, this is a small country, I have a list of 10 names of members sitting there whose relatives are on board. Let me tell you something. I train my venom to those who have entered the arena, not people's relatives. So if I say Rasheen, it's somebody who's here, and I will deal with that. I won't call their names, but 10 of them, hear it? Wife on this board. Hold on. Sister on that board. This is gender neutral. You're man on the next board. Gender neutral. Gender neutral. You see. Gender neutral. I am not casting any improper motives. It could be a female's. It could be Zambo. You understand? He also made a mention that 456 persons were hired at WASA.
Mr. Speaker,
how many of those?
48-1. When I spoke, I did it in relation to a line item. I did it in relation to a line item, and the member raised that issue of the line item. And
goods and services, personal expenses, and I'm responding, and I'm
No, the board members won't form part of the SFC. You know that. Board appointments don't form part of SFC.
So, Mr. Speaker, do so really, don't like so. But I don't know. You see, as you speak about your God, my ancestors are there, sir. And they're there with me throughout. And more importantly, he could give, but he can't take. Well, so he could shout and cast aspersions on this one, on that one. But as you make a suggestion, he jumps up like Jack in the box. So let me continue. I was saying, Mr. Speaker, I have these 10 members. Just as you have your disclosures, we have the files and we have the disclosures. But they didn't sign up for this. We signed up for this today, but we have the information. But we will take the high road. And I will meet who I have to meet in this parliament. And I will not be a coward and call people's names or families' names to get cheap political points. Cheap political points. What happens, you see, Mr. Speaker? There's something in him want to come out. There's a confabulation, and it wants to emerge. And it comes out in different putrid statements, shouting at this one, and how this one wasn't qualified. Let me tell you, the two persons who were spoken about who were hired at WASA, one was eminently qualified with a degree in communication. I did my research whilst the honourable member was speaking. And the other person went through a process. Did those bloggers, those influencers, how many of them that were hired, they went through a process? Yeah. And how come, And in that regard, I want to address the issue of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I spend enough time on that kind of thing that just happened there. Yes, I want to focus on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Focus. I started by asking if that's what they really voted us out for, boy. Yeah. That we will spend 45 minutes at 10:30 in the night on a Monday to hear about who hired who and what file going where, and he have marked the bus here. Seriously? Nothing about planning, nothing about improvement.
Nothing.
At this time, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we are facing economic uncertainty because of this government, you know, Mr. Speaker. And it's increasing financial pressures in the daily lives of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Every dollar spent must be accounted for. And the most concerning aspect of the report before us is not necessarily the expenditure, but is the accounting for it. Questions which were raised in the Standing Finance Committee relative to adequate particulars were not provided. The report is littered with repeated requests for information regarding expenditure being sought. The Ministry of Education, questions asked, repeated requests. In many instances, requested basic details, including the identities of persons to be paid, the nature of the expenditure, the number of employees involved, outstanding liabilities, and the purposes for which the funds were used. And up to now, we have not received an answer, but filibustering left, right, and center. Left, right, and center. We can't perform our duty analyzing this report, Mr. Speaker, if there's not transparency. Therefore, the issue is not one of expenditure. It is one of process. It is one of giving us the information that is required so that we can make an assessment. And this assessment has to be taken in this context. The supplementary appropriation is $2,927,371.85. The variations account for $737,522,918. A total adjustment, Mr. Speaker, of $3,664,894,769. Almost 3.7 billion during the course of a fiscal year. We understand that you come back, you know, mid-year. That's what the mid-year review is. So we understand that basic premise. But the real question that the honourable member for Diego Martin Northeast raised, the honourable member for Bonnier Lopino raised, the honourable member for St. Anne's, Port of Spain North raised, how much of this expenditure was genuinely unforeseen and how much represents obligations which were already known when the budget was initially passed. And up to now, all of us having asked these questions, and I would be guilty of tedious repetition because we have not gotten the answer. We have not gotten an answer, Mr. Speaker. We have not gotten an answer. Is it because there really is no answer? When you, is that the reason? How come no one is raising tedious repetition? When you look at the supplementations, Mr. Speaker, and I did an analysis before I came here today. When you look at the main concentration of the allocation, it is as follows, because I have a thesis on it. Ministry of Public Utilities, 513,641. Ministry of Health, 499,978. Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, 454 million. Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, 362,944,000. Ministry of Housing, 197,364,000. Ministry of Rural Development, $188,210,000. Ministry of Education, 127,779,000. The Tobago House of Assembly, 94 million. The Office of the Attorney General, 75 million. These are the 9 main allocations accounting for the overwhelming majority of the supplementary expenditure before this House. It tells and it draws the attention of this Parliament to how is this money being spent and what type of expenditure is being funded. I want to join with all my colleagues who went before, and I want to develop the thesis as it relates to this. This supplemental bill is not a development bill. Mr. Speaker, the government has sought to present this as necessary expenditure. But when you examine the type of expenditure that it is, it tells that it is divided into these main categories: goods and services, current transfers and subsidies, transfer to statutory bodies, development program. And what is most important, Mr. Speaker, and the member for Diego Martin Northeast and Lopino Bonnier pointed it out in a real way. Out of the 2.9 billion in supplementary expenditure, only 92.7 million is allocated for development program. Let us pause here for a moment. You have a mid-year exercise that you call for a handsome sum of money. And out of that sum, not 5% is dedicated towards new development projects. What happens to Trinidad and Tobago in that period? There's a standstill of development. That is what I wanted the Honourable Member for Couva South to discuss. Where is the development plan? Where is Trinidad and Tobago? Who's knocking at whose door, or Pooch East, when there's absolutely no money that is allocated towards developing the economy of Trinidad and Tobago? It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. And let me put down my notes and do Economics 101. The development of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago trickles down and affects each citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. One would think that in light of circumstances where you are saying, I am raising, and this came out of the mouth of Barataria Sanwan, sometimes he can't help himself, 62,000 public servants are going to benefit from an increase. Yes? So I am happy for the public servants. What happens to the tens of thousands, the 50,000 workers who were sent home unceremoniously and summarily? They get, out of that 10%, the one is taken away. They get no percent. And there is no development plan in place that would give them some hope that they will have some sort of contribution made to their livelihood, to their likelihood of obtaining employment, any plan that will look after their future so that they could look after the welfare of their family. And this is the main bugbear that I have with this mid-year review. So instead of busting whatever mark you think you are busting, sir, address the issue of the lack of the development program. Address the issue of what is going towards transformational infrastructure. 0. What is going toward new economic infrastructure? 0. What is going towards significant capital expansion? 0. Instead, it is largely recurrent expenditure, subsidies, transfers, and existing obligations, and loans that you ought to have catered for initially that you just sidestep. It's an important distinction. This mid-year review is not about building. There is no significant difference, Mr. Speaker, in our respectful view, between borrowing or spending. There is, a significant review between borrowing and spending money to create future growth and spending money to meet already existing obligations. Mr. Speaker, as I looked at this mid-year review, I concentrated on the police expenditure and the cost of security in Trinidad and Tobago. It is an undisputed fact that one of the main concerns, apart from livelihood in Trinidad and Tobago, is life itself. And when we speak about life itself, and the other side, the honourable members of the other side, tries to tell this population that the PNM government did not care about the small man, I remind this population about the experience in COVID-19 between 2020 and 2022. Not one public servant received their salaries late. Not one job was cut by this government. Not one pension check was delivered late. We delivered, honourable member for Diego Martin Northeast, you delivered on time. Every month, every year, for 2 years. We provided, Mr. Speaker, this government, this opposition, provided food packages for persons who would not have been able to feed themselves during COVID. We made allocations for people to work from home while still receiving their full salary in order to protect their lives. Do not try to rewrite history. Trinidad and Tobago, do not let wool be pulled over your eyes again. There was a submission made that if Trinidad and Tobago should take God out of the thoughts and bring back the PNM, well, you see and you continue to see what happens. You haven't taken God out of your thoughts to elect them into government. That is what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. So I asked the question, this is what you left us for? Seriously? That a senior member, you understand, could just come here and talk about people's families? When you have glass window, you're pelting stone? And what is more important, Mr. Speaker, as I go back now to the police expenditure and the cost of security, there's a category of supplementation of 64,200,000 and a variation of $275 million, a total additional allocation of 339,200,000. Mr. Speaker, I beg your pardon. With this amount in additional expenditure, I concentrated on the overtime. And before I speak about the overtime, I want to welcome the member for Arima, who is always here, doing the work of the people of Trinidad and Tobago in her office in the Parliament, nurturing her members who are under attack, giving us moral support, and doing what she is paid to do. I don't know the fetish or the attraction that the honourable member for Couva South, maybe is a jealousy thing. Could be the hairstyle, okay? Could be the hairstyle. The figure of 100 million paid in overtime needs to be examined. I asked the honourable member for Tunapuna, what is the cost of the rolling states of emergencies to the population of Trinidad and Tobago? And up to now, we have not received an answer. Questions asked, answered, not received. The government has repeatedly pointed to reductions in crime indicators, yet Parliament is still being asked even now to approve extraordinary increases in overtime expenditure alone. I do not oppose resources being given to law enforcement. That is something that we are warmed to. But we are entitled to ask what outcomes are being achieved, what performance indicators are being used, and where is that money going to? Is this exorbitant rise in overtime due to the rolling states of emergencies? Is it? How much expenditure addresses long-term policing? How much of this expenditure addresses policing capacity? And how much is simply covering escalating operational costs due to the rolling states of emergencies? These are answers that we want relative to that head. Crime and security is also an issue that we want to address, Mr. Speaker. The government seeks both supplementary appropriations and variations for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And what we want to ask, Mr. Speaker, is this money, if it's going to be used primarily for overtime, it means that the police service is not being equipped with the resources necessary to discharge its responsibilities. The money is going towards overtime. That is a serious question and it's a serious concern. What measurable improvements will we gain from this whooping sum? Expenditure alone cannot be regarded, Mr. Speaker, as evidence of success, and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago want their patent value for money. And this debate ought to have centered around that instead of lacquery and bacchanal. And that is what we were met with at 11 o'clock in the night, this Monday night. Citizens and this government performance will be judged by the citizens. Something is going to happen very soon. Whether the interruptions are reduced and whether there are long-standing deficiencies in the state of affairs of the police service is a matter that must be addressed. It is now incumbent on the government and the minister responsible to demonstrate how these allocations will translate into tangible improvements in the delivery of protection for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and this is our submission in this regard. Mr. Speaker, we look at the allocation for the justice system, which includes the Attorney General, the Office of the Attorney General, and that of the Judiciary. 39,154,000 was allocated to the judiciary. Mr. Speaker, right now in the criminal courts there is an issue. We have appointed new masters, we have appointed new judges, yet there are no prosecutors to fill those courts. What happens now? So you have the master and the judge sitting down, but a trial cannot be done. The wisdom of a PNM government moved the civil court down to the waterfront and left the Knox Street for criminal matters and the Court of Appeal only. What has happened there? The civil court is down. The civil court was moved, Mr. Speaker, down to the waterfront. The Hall of Justice was earmarked for criminal matters. We have the courts on the first floor. There are the old masters' courts on the second floor. There's the Court of Appeal on the third floor. If you do not house those courts with prosecutors, the appointment of the masters and the judges makes absolutely no sense. Mr. Speaker, I would like to give my contribution. I have listened for the whole day. I've listened attentively, absorbing what is here. I would like to make my contributions. Silence, please. Silence. I understand that the gloves are off and it works both ways. That's all I have to say. And I ain't talking about no powder puff punch, you know. I'm speaking to the Speaker. The Office of the Attorney General was given $75 million. And it received almost twice the supplementary allocation of the judiciary. That gives a little cognitive dissonance. The information that must be requested and must be provided was, with these monies, who is being paid? How much is being paid? The nature of the matters involved, and what are the outstanding liabilities? This is not a concern of the opposition alone. It is a concern reflected in the committee's own requests, because the Parliament ought not to be expected to approve significant figures without having access to these particulars. Mr. Speaker, we say that this bill as it stands, it exists to meet existing obligations, creating nothing that is new and nothing that is developmental for Trinidad and Tobago. Speaker, I see you're watching the clock. How much more time do I have?
5 minutes.
Of regular time?
Regular time.
I will take my 15 minutes on ground. When one strips away the rhetoric and examines the actual figures, the facts, a clear picture emerges. Apart from not being a bill about development, our other major concern that this bill has nothing in it for economic transformation of Trinidad and Tobago. And Mr. Speaker, that must be in the mid-year. That must be a concern for all right-thinking citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. In other words, how do you benefit from this? I don't know how to talk to Orpuch East again about chutney, you know. I don't know how to warn him about that.
Perhaps it portends a message.
It may be 48-6. But what I say, Mr. Speaker, is this. What I say, Mr. Speaker, is this. This bill primarily is not about new projects. When I looked at it, Mr. Speaker, and I really want to tick the boxes as I make my presentation and ensure that I cover all the heads. It largely concerns itself with subsidies, transfers, debt servicing, recurring financial costs, overtime payments, statutory obligations, and liabilities that already existed and ought to have been accounted for initially. If these obligations, so two issues present themselves now to be debated, Mr. Speaker, and I ask the member from Faizabad to address this issue. I asked you before if they were known already, because what I have cited here must have been known already. Why were they not properly budgeted for in the first place? We understand that you must come back mid-year. But when you come back mid-year, the premise of coming back mid-year is things that occur on the run that you could not have appreciated. you come back to Parliament and say, I need this. But these things, Mr. Speaker, let me continue. That is an issue. But here's my second issue, and which is the main point, Mr. Speaker, which is the main point. And it goes to the heart of fiscal management and fiscal prudence. In a tight time, why are these figures, or which of these figures, which of the 92.7 million, let's forget about the major part of it, but is any part of that $92 million, Honorable Minister, going towards any development in Trinidad and Tobago, to benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to benefit any fiscal program in Trinidad and Tobago, to benefit any jobs for the persons in Trinidad and Tobago, to benefit any jobs for the persons of Port of Spain South? And here's the irony, as I now turn to constituency issues. Mr. Speaker, I'm really being disturbed now.
The cluster in the middle, I think the member is making, because I'm hearing you as well.
Mr. Speaker, these are Port of Spain South issues and the perspective coming from the people of Port of Spain South who I represent. The people of Port of Spain South do not understand and do not experience government expenditure through reports, schedules, and appropriations. They experience government expenditure through the impact it has on their daily lives. How does this mid-year review positively impact the lives of any one of the constituents in Port of Spain South? Does it at all? In Port of Spain South, they experience this review, this thing that we're doing here, through their own lenses, through employment opportunities. They experience it through services made or services available to the public. They experience it through the viability of their small businesses, through the safety in their communities. How does this mid-year review positively affect any one of those indicators? And what is even more troubling, Mr. Speaker, there's an ongoing concern now in sea lots relative to the wholesale fish market, which is illustrative of the point I want to make. This fish market has been in existence for over 4 decades in sea lots. It is the hub of economic activity that moves persons from Port of Spain South and sea lots from being dependent on the state to being entrepreneurs and dependent on themselves. There's a symbiotic relationship between that fish market and businesses in East Port of Spain and environs, because you have businesses such as groceries, restaurants, and small haberdashery stores which rely on that fish market to get their fresh daily fish, apart from other businesses. The people of Port of Spain South and sea lots in particular depend on the fish market. When they can't afford a meal and they don't have, they can go to the fish market and they can get a 2 slices of curry or cavalli to make a fish broth for themselves. So,
the learned member already did say he's going to speak about constituency. No. Let's be a little fair, give him a little leeway.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. They want, going back to the main item and the main thesis, they want to know how the decisions made affect their plans to exist in the future. And they were given a directive, Mr. Speaker, that come the 15th of June, they're going to shut down that fish market. So you take away CPEP from them, you take away URP, you take away fisheries, now you want to take away the fish market. You say, do not be grass cutters. They say, okay, we are fishermen, and you want to take that away from them, Mr. Speaker. We say here that economic development, and we heard that there was I am not.
1B, repetition. Non-truth.
Mr. Speaker, that cannot, Mr. Speaker, I have the notice. I think I have the notice here. Mr. Speaker, I have the notice here. I don't have the notice here. And now come on. That's why,
the member has stopped the dig up in his box now. I mean,
once it's not your box.
No, but, okay, enough vulgar. And now he's...
Yes, enough of that.
We could make him. We know where he would go. He'd be vulgar.
Honorable Chief. Okay. For the Spain South, unless you're going to refer to a document that contradicts what the member for Arapuch East is reporting that the minister has said, the relevant minister has said.
Mr. Speaker, I am going to refer to the document which forms the notice which the persons were given. So I am going to refer to that document. I'm just looking for it because I do not. I understand. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker! Come on! Well, let's see I now land. The National Agricultural Marketing and Development Corporation to the Port of Spain Wholesale Fish Market, all stakeholders. The National Agricultural Marketing and Development, NAMDEFCO, wishes to advise stakeholders that the operations of the Port of Spain Wholesale Fish Market are scheduled to be relocated effective 15th of June 2026. Come on. Mr. Speaker, they had a meeting. Mr. Speaker. See,
that is today's
community. In this regard, the corporation invites all stakeholders.
For the Spain South, Senator Hassan is taking a point.
The same 58(1)B that the member raised. Today is that date, and if there were any truth to that memo, those fishermen would not be there today. I repeat, it is a falsehood. So the memo cannot be true if the date has reached and those fishermen have not been moved.
I am. Hold on.
58 is division.
I have an issue with it in the sense that the notice you've read said that the market is to be relocated. The tenor of your submission was that it's been closed down. So there's a difference. So you need to...
The relocation contemplated is that they will close down sea lots and move them down to Carnage. Come on! So the sea lots fish market will no longer be, Mr. Speaker. I am happy for the assurances given, but I am raising constituency issues legitimately, and I don't want to make it a bacchanal.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry to raise 48(1). This does not apply in this debate. No, it doesn't apply. The ministry, there's no line item. The Ministry of Agriculture got no allocation.
All right. I think we've fleshed this out enough, and we can move on to another issue.
The point I am making is that we want, when we come here to do the mid-year review, we don't want to have letters where we're calling people names. We want to discuss national and community issues. That's the point I'm making. And we, on this side, say, Mr. Speaker, and I'm glad for the assurances, we on this side say that we demand from the government transparency and particulars justifying this expenditure. And the larger the expenditure, the greater the responsibility is placed on the Honourable Minister to explain. Our responsibility is to ensure that the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago remain at the center of every financial decision. Mr. Speaker, I want to directly affect an issue raised by the member for Couva South. He boasted. He boasted. Just as he boasted. Just hold on. He boasted, Mr. Speaker, about he and his God, whether his God is called Hanuman or Jesus. We, on this side, I particularly, me, because that's something very personal, offer no such boast. What I do say, though, Mr. Speaker, is no spurious allegation will silence me, inside or outside. And when so-called friends decide that they will turn, I will reciprocate, Mr. Speaker, because that is not how I live my life. And no weapon, Mr. Speaker, that is formed by anyone will prosper on this side as it relates to me. And when the time comes and the truth is revealed, Mr. Speaker, because listen, imagine you have all this mouth, but you still will rush you. You will send a woman, a lady, to do your work. Okay,
that
Mr. Speaker,
that doesn't form part of this debate.
Mr. Speaker, he meant, Mr. Speaker, be fair to me. It was mentioned. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister's statement is a minister's statement. This doesn't form part of that. So, move along.
Let me piggyback on exactly what he said. Let me be electric for him. He like electric. It's electric. Let me be electric to him.
Currently.
So my answer is as follows. When you and your cohorts cook up what you all think that you are cooking up, yes, and you come here and you want to beat your chest as the Pharisee. But when you try to dig a hole on this side, be careful if you're not buried in the same hole. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the constituents of Port of Spain South, who, mind you, I communed with this weekend. And when we spoke about this government, because they call me, you know, they say, MP, come and talk to us about this mid-year budget review, because we want to understand. We want to understand what is going on in the Parliament and on this mid-year review. And after 2 hours of just talking, they say, MP, we have a new code, you know. To endure what happening here, it has to be love alone. That's what they said, you know. They say, love alone can make us overcome the hardship that we are enduring here on a daily basis without going out on the streets. So, I say to the government, you had your mandate on the 20th of April, 2025. Speaker, how much time I have again? Thank you. But we on this side will not be deterred. Somebody had the temerity to say 10, and that's the end of the PNM. Don't wish that was. We here to stay. And my response to you is, when you reach 10, come and talk to me. Come and talk to me on this side. I want to commend the honourable member for Arima, who has shown her commitment and leadership in this Parliament. And she has been here for the entire night, and she will have the stamina to last until we finish whatever we're doing here. Whether she decides to speak or not, that's her decision. And if you all ain't learned that from the Bates debacle, well, you all will never learn. She takes her own time, she is her own woman, and she makes her own decision. She will not be bullied. And you can't take out no phone and play good and take picture and have a call. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.